literally all of their time with each other, caring for one another, looking after for one another, trusting in each other to do their job so that they could be victorious in all that they did. This was such a man as Uriah. And David tries to trick Uriah into something important. Bathsheba becomes pregnant. And rather than fess up to it, because all David really had to say was, this is my child, whatever happens now, we have the truth of. But he was not ready or not willing to talk about the truth of the fact that he had this child inside another man's wife. And so he tries to get Uriah to come back into town to sleep with his wife and somehow figure out the dates and the calendars and those kind of things and make it seem as if that was Uriah's child. And Uriah works really hard at trying to be faithful to his men. And even though he could be back in the palace enjoying the same things that David enjoyed, he decides rather to spend the nights in the poorest of accommodations in order to just send a message to his troops that he loved them and cared for them and that he wanted everything to be good for them as well. And so David is unable to bring about Uriah's by trickery the fact that Uriah's baby was there. So David sets up a time with one of his generals to have Uriah go into the front lines, and just when the fighting got fiercest, the troops were going to be under instruction to back away from where Uriah was, to leave Uriah vulnerable and hurt, which he does, and Uriah is killed upon the battlefield. And all of a sudden David is faced not only with an illegitimate child, but also faced with the murder of one of his closest friends as well. I'm not a murderer and I'm not an adulterer, so I don't know how people feel when they do those kind of things, but it must take a terrible toll on people's emotions and on their souls and on their desires and feelings. It would have been very difficult. At that time, there was a prophet who wanted to. His name was Nathan, and God gave Nathan the responsibility of going and confronting David in his sin. Sometimes I think we read the passage and we think, oh, this is one time Nathan just knocks on David's door, David lets him in, everything is fine. I don't think that's the way it happened, really. I think Nathan, like us, went in a spirit of hope toward David the king, and tried as hard as he could to get an audience with the king. And every time the king heard Nathan's name mentioned, I think the king said, I'm not interested in having him talk to me. I have enough trouble dealing with my own feelings and dealing with myself. I don't need somebody else telling me what's right or what's wrong. But after a while, he gives in, and so we find Nathan coming into the picture and taking David apart in the sin that he had created. And I think that once Nathan has got through to David and he says, David, you're not the only one who knows the truth. You're not the only one who's willing to stand forth and to tell the truth in the midst of enemies and in the midst of troubles. You're not the only one who knows what needs to be done. Nathan knows, and I think David realizes that not only Nathan knows, but everybody else that he cares about and he knows well, knows about what he has done as well. And so he hears finally God's voice. And then he responds to God's voice by this. He says, have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love, according to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin, for I know my transgressions and my sin is ever before me. As David seeks to deal with his sin, he is finally able to realize its effect on his spirit. I think he tried every possible way to deal with sin, this sin that he could. Saul seemed to get pleasure from musical instruments, and I think David would probably have thought the same way.